Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Next Man Up, where we have average guys sharing their average takes on all professional sports. Matt, Tom, and Connor are here with you today. We're going to talk NBA. Hopefully, we believe Sean will be joining us momentarily, but we're going to be talking a little NBA. We have the trade deadline has just passed. The signing period for free agents has also passed. So teams are pretty much shaping into what they're going to be looking like for the final stretch of the season. But there was a lot going on, guys. There was a lot of big time names being traded and people shifting to different teams. So let's get right into it. The first one, PJ Tucker traded to the Bucks. Again, making Milwaukee a deeper team in the East against a net team that's very good. It's looking like it's them, the Sixers, and the Nets that are going to be the top dogs in the East when all is said and done. Guys, what do we think about those top three? Does PJ Tucker help the Bucks shift above either of those teams at this point?
Connor, I don't know. Did you want to go first, or?
No, you can go first.
So what is it right now? You said, Matt, it's the 76ers and
the Nets and the
right?
Bucks.
So to be honest with you, I don't think getting Tucker does a ton for the Bucks. I think they're still pretty much around the same team. I got like a little bit better, but they're basically chilling. They still have a lot of work to do if they're going to beat the Sixers, who obviously have, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and they have their nice shooting squad over there. They look really good, and the Nets are just, becoming an unreal super team. Again, NBA very corrupt, not too much fun to watch these days. But I don't think the Bucks really do much for themselves with this one. I think they still have a lot of work to do, and they're going to need to play perfect if they're going to beat either of those two teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's the Nets East to lose. I just, with the additions of Aldridge and Blake Griffin, I don't see them losing. I think the 76ers and Bucks will make it interesting, but the Nets should, and I think they will win.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the addition of Drummond, they signed him. I believe that was today. It's going to make it an even tougher uphill battle. I think it makes them just as competitive with the 76ers in terms of depth. This PJ Tucker deal did a little for the Bucks, but I'm not too sure if it's going to be enough unless, Giannis has some stellar postseason performances.
Yeah. The Bucks really need one more. They really need like another superstar, because Middleton's a solid. He's, in my opinion, I think Middleton could be a number 3 on a great team. The Bucks need one more guy. That they need like a dominant point guard that can really shoot to complement Giannis. I think that's what they're missing.
Yeah. Chris Middleton is doing a good job, but I like the depth's not there compared to the Sixers and to the Nets. It should be interesting. They won't be meeting each other in the first round, so we'll see who they go up against and how they look. Let's go to a team that's a little bit farther down in the East. Miami made a splash. They acquired Victor Oladipo from Houston for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a draft swap. And we have another splash with the Bulls. They land, which is probably the biggest deal of the trade deadline. They land Nikola Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu from the Magic for Otto Porter and Wendell Carter and 2 first-round picks. So, guys, I think this is going to bring up a good discussion. The Bulls are sitting 10 right now, and after we discuss this, I'm gonna dive into. I can't believe Orlando's doing what they're doing, but the Bulls are in the 10 seed right now. The Heat, the Celtics, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Knicks, in that order, from bottom to top, are ahead of them. Clearly, the Bulls are trying to trade to be competitive and make the playoffs with this move. Vucevic is a star. Do they get in after acquiring these two guys? Who do they kick someone out of the top spots right now out of all those teams?
It's going to be a tight one. I think at this point, I think if you're the Bulls, I think you're eyeing right now like the Knicks and the Hornets as potential teams to slip out. I think the Celtics and the Hawks I think are going to get in. Um, the Heat, honestly, I feel like if they can keep their team healthy, I think they could slip in. As a Knicks fan, I'm very nervous because honestly, we're seeing, like you said, Matt, a lot of trades are going down. Teams are improving. The Knicks are kind of chilling right now. I think the Bulls could definitely make a push. Do I think they're going to get in? If they get in, they're going to be the 8 because Zach LaVine's having an incredible year over there. Like you said, Matt, Vucevic is a star, so that only makes them better. I think it's going to be tight. I think if they get in, they maybe get the 8th spot, or else they'll just miss it. They'll be the 9.
Yeah. Going back to the Heat, this is a big game coming up for the Knicks in about 15 minutes in a tip-off. They are going against the Heat, and like you said, the Knicks they didn't really do anything. They were a part of one trade with the 76ers in a 3-team trade with the Thunder, but they acquired a guy who is not really worth anything. They just opened up a roster spot essentially. But I see the Bulls actually kicking out either the Hawks or the Hornets. I think, like you said, the Celtics and Heat, they'll stay in. I think the Knicks will squeeze in. I don't think the Knicks are a team to immediately take out. If you think the Bulls are now playoff contenders, I think the Knicks are going to be there to stay. I think they'll end up finishing either they're going to squeeze into the playoffs. I think it's between the Hawks and the Hornets that the Bulls would end up taking out of there. But Connor, I'll leave that to you now.
I'm gonna go with Tom on this one. I think the Hawks and the Celtics will make a last end of the season push and probably end up in the 4 or 5 spot. I think the Knicks will go down a little bit. Losing Mitchell Robinson hurt them. I think the Bulls can squeeze in over maybe the Hornets or the Heat. I don't know, but it's gonna be a tight finish. It's gonna be interesting as to who makes it. I hope the Knicks do. That'd be solid. They've been shit for a couple of years now, but so it should be an interesting push to end the season.
Yeah.
If you look, LaMelo Ball is injured. He's going to be out for I believe a couple months, so that's going to hurt the Hornets' chances. Also, talking about the Hawks, as I did before, they acquired Lou Williams to team up with Trae Young as a 1-2 pairing now, sending Rondo, a facilitator, to the Clippers. I think that's a good move for the Clippers going to the West, guys. If you look, with LeBron and AD still hurt, the Clippers are hanging around the middle of the pack in the West, with the Jazz being a dominant force right now. I think that's a good pickup for the Clippers. I think it makes them more competitive. I think it gives them something that Jazz really don't have. You have Mitchell being a really good scorer. But Rondo's he's more of a get more his team involved in the game sort of player, which is going to be perfect when you have George and Kawhi already on that team. Let's talk about the 2 signings. Like I believe Connor said before, Aldridge signing with the Nets today, Andre Drummond not getting traded. They agreed for a buyout. And he will now sign with the Lakers. Tom, you have been following the Lakers a good amount, so I'll turn this to you. How big is this pickup, Andre Drummond, with AD and LeBron sidelined at the moment?
Well, here's what it comes down to. So we were just talking about this before we started the episode. LeBron and AD are going to miss a good amount of games. The West is very competitive, so you really can't afford to lose, to get on a losing streak if you're the Lakers, because then you're going to drop very, very quickly, and you definitely don't want to slide, especially when the Mavericks, I think, are number 8, which the Mavericks are a very good team. So picking up Drummond, you saw what he did with the Cavs. He single-handedly was basically, like, him and Sexton were the 2 running that team over there. And he was having an incredible, incredible year. I think for this, getting Drummond allows the Lakers to hold on and get, I think, some wins that they won't necessarily get without him. So I think for the Lakers themselves, like that's a huge pick. And then when LeBron and AD come back, the West is going to be in a lot of trouble. Before I was thinking to myself, all right, I don't know if I could see the Lakers repeating after seeing how good the Nets got. Obviously, the Jazz are playing great basketball. The Suns look great. The Clippers look great. And even the Nuggets too. And then you got the Trailblazers over there with Damian Lillard. So I think at this point, the Lakers, I think, just put themselves back in the running where I think now they definitely look like they're the best team in the West getting Drummond, which is huge because especially for LeBron's legacy, I think he needs this title this year. So
yeah, they need to come back. I think this is a good placeholder until they get back. Having Drummond, it'll keep them above where they'll probably be coasting at the 4 seed, with the Nuggets right behind, 2 games behind them, the Trailblazers 2 games behind them, and then after that it's pretty much a drop off. They're 1 game behind the Clippers. The Clippers are 1 game behind the Suns, so it's still competitive up there. I think this keeps them at bay, but I really think they're going to need LeBron and AD back if they have any, because they're going to make the playoffs with how it's looking right now. But they need them, or else they're not. They could be out in the first round if they're not healthy. They really could. The West is really competitive in the playoffs. I want to go back to this point, and Connor, the Thunder got 2 more for the 2nd round picks in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you wanted to focus in on this. I believe they have like over a dozen 1st and 2nd round picks the next.
They have 17 first rounders and 17 second rounders.
That is absolutely
absurd. I think in the upcoming like 5, 6, 7 years, I think something like that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But it's going to be interesting how they shuffle players out because obviously you can't have that many players on the roster. I think they'll try to. They're definitely going to build around the younger guys. It should be interesting in who steps up to the plate and takes or recreates that Thunder team and who's like a bust and will end up somewhere else. It should be interesting what the Thunder do. They're definitely rebuilding. So I think give them 5, 6 years, they'll be really good.
See, yeah. So a similar team in this situation now are the Magic, and I have a friend of mine who is a Magic fan, and I was ripping him because what they're doing has a lot of fan implications, and let me explain what I mean. You trade arguably a top 3 center in the East to a team who's not that much better than you, and you do it for essentially 2 subpar players and picks, and then you double down and you send Aaron Gordon to the Nuggets, who are another team that are around your skill level, for again nothing. You better have a plan in place if you're going to be giving away treasures for trash, and to say it in clean terms, if you're going to give good players away for literally piles of shit and picks, you better know what you're doing, because that's a very fine line. Because as Knicks fans, we all know we had an absolutely horrible time watching Porzingis go away, watching Melo get taken away, and have all have the picks come in, and they mean absolutely nothing. Look at Frank Ntilikina. He's not developed at all. The dude doesn't even look at the rim. Like he's a strictly defensive point guard. We picked him so high in the draft.
On him, my God.
Like so you need to you can't do this because it's polarizing for fans. There were times where we weren't watching the Knicks because they were so horribly run after planning a rebuild and saying Melo's not the answer, Porzingis isn't the answer, and having this rebuild happen and then basically getting crapped on after it. It's like, so they
Yeah.
better have a plan in place in
Well,
Orlando.
yeah, I mean, if you look, right, like I think Matt, you brought up a good comparison here with the Knicks and the Thunder, right? Like after Melo parted ways with the Knicks literally have been so irrelevant for the past 7, 8 years. Like it actually hurts. It's kind of the same thing with the Thunder. Once they lost Durant, like with them still having Westbrook, they were still like a playoff team. Like they could still get in there because Westbrook was really carrying hard. But once Westbrook left, like there's nothing to work with there. You might as well just try to rebuild a team. And it takes a long time to rebuild a team. You got to have the right coaching staff in there. You got to be smart with your draft picks. And listen, you need to have player development as well. And I think for the Thunder, I think Connor and Megas touched upon this. There's a lot of room for them to grow, but the thing is they got to do it the right way because they have a ton of picks. You can't keep everyone. You're gonna have to pick and choose who you keep, who you're gonna put all of your focus into, and hopefully they can develop. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, that's a really you're really asking a lot of fans to wait years and years like that because Vucevic is still in his prime, and I'm sure a lot of fans would think that with his ability, you get a couple more guys around him, you can do something. But it just seems like they're playing cheap. You know that you're playing cheap because you have a good guy and you can't keep him because you can't build around him because you don't want to build around him because you think there's a future where you can end up saving money another time and doing it. It's like to compare it to the Knicks. Like I think that Julius, you get another great guy with Julius Randle. I think the Knicks are as competitive as the Bucks. I really do. They really could be.
Yeah, we've seen that. Then you saw them beat the Bucks the other night. So
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
like I
maybe.
think you get another guy that can consistently score, and hopefully RJ Barrett can be a good third option on that team. But get one more guy on that team, and it really it could be something special.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like I think that's what Houston or Miami did with Oladipo because now you got Butler
yeah.
and
Listen,
him.
Oladipo, he would have been great if the Knicks could have found a way to pick him up because that's what the Knicks need. The Knicks need just like a score. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's gonna be focused on carrying the load when it comes to shooting consistently on an everyday basis. That's what the Knicks need.
It's funny we bring up this Knicks needing a guy because I was reading something today about like DeMar DeRozan being like a good option for
Oh, he'd be
um,
great.
the Knicks. I think if he goes, um, you like you said, Matt, they could be as competitive as the Bucks. You got Julius Randle and DeMar DeRozan. You got a bunch of this younger talent who's stepping up and making the Knicks
Yeah.
good. Like RJ Barrett can develop. Um,
Oh, he's gonna be very good, RJ Barrett.
yeah, but then you got like you got these guys who have the talent. They can do it. You get someone in there. You have like D Rose, you got the veteran leadership of Derrick Rose on the team.
Yeah.
Try to develop quickly. Make him your point guard. Get him matched up with Derrick Rose. They can learn a few things from these older guys, and I think the Knicks have a promising future. If I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, because if we well, I'm looking at the standings now. If we look at it right, the Knicks are 8 games back of the Sixers for first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
That's just I say first place because they're not even sniffing it. But
Yeah.
my point is, if there's a drop off because the Bucks are 2.5 games back, and the Knicks are the next place down at 8. So you see that there it's that couple game difference where the Knicks beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and they lose to the teams that they're considerably worse than, which is kind of what we expect. But that's why I think it goes back to the point. RJ Barrett becomes a good developing third option. Julius Randle gets better. I think you get one more guy that's of similar ability.
Yeah.
You have a team that can compete, and New York basketball would be exciting on both ends of the spectrum. It would really turn into a good rivalry, and I think it'd be better for the sport too. Really.
Yeah, well, we definitely need more talent to go over to the East. But guys, I wanted to talk quickly about the Aldridge, Blake Griffin, I guess pickups for the Nets because for me, I look at those two players and everyone remembers them in their primes, right? When you hear those two names, you're like, oh my God, like those are great players. But if you look at their production their last few seasons, like they've had big drop-offs as individual players. And I think they've become more so like I guess role players, right? But on the teams that they're with, they can't be role players because they already have so many role players around them. So I think here at the Nets, obviously having James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, those are the guys that are gonna have the balls in their hand at all times. But I think getting Aldridge and Blake Griffin, one provides a lot of veteran experience over there, and two, I think they're not going to be expected to play heavy minutes like they are on these other teams, so they might be able to actually make more of an impact because they're not looked at as like that number one option like they used to
Right.
be.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. We don't know what's going on with KD. He was supposed to be back probably around this time. He's still not. So hopefully it's not an issue, and the Nets are just coasting because they don't need to overplay KD. But I feel like if KD wanted to play, he'd be out there. So there must be a problem. But yeah, Tom, like you said, having Kyrie, Harden already on the team, being those guys, even without KD, you throw KD in that mix, they can just take their experience and IQ of the game and be facilitators, and they can put themselves in good positions, and they can end up not being the guys to do all the work. They can be the facilitators that they never could be on other teams like that. So, final thoughts on this, guys. How is so? Who is not making it out of the West? I'm going to read off the bottom. Spurs and Mavs both have 23 wins. The Warriors have 22 wins. The Grizzlies have 21 wins. Out of that little area, because we already talked about the East and if the Bulls could kick someone out, do you see that shifting at all with the Grizzlies or the Warriors taking a spot now that the Spurs have decided to move on from Aldridge? Is there any chance for a little shift now in the West, in the bottom half?
I think personally, I think the Spurs are gonna drop. I think the Mavs will move to 7, and then I personally think the Warriors are gonna slip in and take that number 8 spot. If they can get Curry back, within enough time that they can make a push. I don't know when he's supposed to come back, but if Curry,
He could play today. He was trending towards playing.
yeah,
As
like
part of graphics stuff,
if he comes back, Curry, and he can stay healthy the rest of the year, I think the Warriors take the number 8 spot. If he does not stay healthy, I think the Grizzlies take the 8th spot. But I think the Spurs are definitely dropping.
yeah, I'm gonna double down on you and Connor, I'll bring it to you. I think the Warriors sneak in as long as Curry comes back because he played phenomenal the whole season. Curry comes back, they're sneaking in, and I'll go with you. The Spurs will also drop out.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Spurs will drop. I don't out of all the other teams in the West, I don't see any of them dropping out of the top 8 except for the Spurs. I'm gonna agree with you. I think the Warriors can make a push. Maybe the Pelicans. So I think that if two teams were to get in, I think it would either be the Pelicans or the Warriors. One of the two, but it should be interesting. But I'm also gonna jump back to the Nets and the Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, because they're definitely in this win now mentality. But when you're in that win now mentality, you can't lose sight of your future. So like trading these guys, you gotta make sure you have. It's great to have the win now mentality, but you also at the same time have to have this emphasis for the future, and you got to focus on your future talent to make sure you're good in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, Nets got to win now, Connor. Like you said, they've invested, they've traded. The players they have now, they have to produce a championship this year or next year or the year after. If they don't get a championship within these 3 years, it's an absolute bust.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. That the whole goal was to ring chase. So if they don't get it, failure beyond belief. But the teams are set. They're not changing anymore. This is how their teams are going to go ending the NBA season. So we'll see who gets in and who gets out. But that'll do it for this episode. Next Man Up. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Next Man Up 05. Download SportsMe. Go follow us. Next Man Up Sports Podcast. If you're listening to us, that means you have our anchor. Go check out our YouTube. If you're on our YouTube, we'll have the Anchor link in the description where you can find Spotify and anywhere you find your podcasts. Nick's not here, so like and subscribe, and have a good one.